Hello, test. Hi. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Great. Awesome. Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome to the Food Systems Pavilion. My name is Jasmine Irisha, and I'll be your moderator for today. I am the Climate and Environment Consultant at UNICEF Malaysia and traveled a long way to be here, and I'm sure all of you have as well. We are here now live at COP27 discussing on the topic of interest of today, which is youth transforming food systems from idea to action. Now, the world's population is young. 4 out of 10 of the global population comprises of young people. That's about 42% of the global population. And young people have often been called energetic, leaders of tomorrow, innovative, creative, but yet, at the same time, recipients and victims of the current flaws in policies and decision-making processes. These young people voices are often left out in big decision-making processes. And both scenarios exist within the same space. They coexist within the same space together. So this session aims to answer the first part of the scene, which is showcasing leadership, amazing initiatives that the young people on the panel here have been leading and taking in addressing the climate crisis and creating the change that they want to see in the world. And by showcasing these initiatives, the session will then make it more solid, made it more concrete in positioning and centering young people at the forefront of taking climate action and change the paradigm and stigma that young people are lazy. No, we are not. We are out there. We are taking action. We are making the change. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce the first panel to my left, the one in the center here, who is Jessica Antonis, the Policy and Advocacy Coordinator with the One Campaign. Jessica, over to you.
Did that work?
Yep.
Ooh, perfect. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Antonissen. I'm from the Netherlands, but currently based in Brussels. And I work for the One Campaign, a campaigning and advocacy organization. And we fight extreme poverty. That's our main mission. And as you can imagine, that is a very big mission that can entail a lot. So we focus on specific topics, specific policy reforms that we propose. We do this in North America, in European countries, and in African countries. And as you can imagine, food systems and food security especially plays a big role when you think about extreme poverty, development, and the roles in the world. So one thing that stuck out to us at the beginning of this year was when Russia invaded Ukraine. We saw that a big food security crisis piled on top of different crises that we were already campaigning on. One was the COVID crisis. We had been campaigning on that for 2 years, trying to get vaccines across the world. Another one was the resulting economic crisis, the climate crisis, and these all came together. And then we had a food security crisis on top of that. So as you can imagine, we were a bit in a despair what to do. And one of the powers that we have at One are our youth ambassadors and our youth activists in African countries, which we call One Champions, and the youth ambassadors we call One Youth Ambassadors. They are really a big lever of change for us. And we sat together around the table thinking about a new campaign. And what we came up with was Generaction. Generaction, the full idea was if we do not act now on these different crises coming together, we are lost. And we need to see, to have people see the bigger picture. And our campaigns often have two sides to it. One is outsider campaigning, talking to people, raising awareness. We had a petition, we went to festivals, we talked to people, and we tried to explain how these crises interlink and have impact on people. And then the other side of that is to take that to politicians and to decision makers. So we take young people and we go into the European Parliament, for example, and we lay down the arguments, we take the petition, we show the support, and in that way we try to have impact. And we link this to very specific policy topics. So in the case of food security, this was about getting funding to countries around getting the food there actually, so humanitarian aid, but also a humanitarian corridor within Ukraine. Because what you saw was that 30% of wheat was stuck in Ukraine and Russia. They are the breadbasket of the world. So once a conflict happens there, on European territory, it does impact all around the world. We saw this even in Brussels when the oil prices went up and our fries were a lot less, sorry, thanks very much. The fries were a lot more expensive, harder to get, so you see the impact around the world. Let me finish there and hand over to the next speaker. I'll come back to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jessica, for sharing your experience. I like how you really brought us through the different segments of creating such awareness, education, and also translating it, bringing it forward to policymakers, connecting the dots, and bridging the gaps. I would like to share the next space with our fellow youth colleague on the stage here, Kofi Kisiedu Akwe, who is the Africa Regional Coordinator for Young Professionals for Agricultural Development. Kofi, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to connect on this platform. Um, in Africa, where I come from, we notice that the youth are the hope for agriculture, because we realize that the sector itself absorbs, like it's the main source of employment on the continent, and the youth themselves need to get involved. And the FAO has actually projected that we would be able to increase production by 60% if we involve the youth. And this has been the focus of YPAD, trying to promote agriculture among the youth. Now, talking about the climate crisis we have at the moment, we notice that it is important to reposition ourselves, to rethink and replan the way we run agriculture, because to even start with, the youth are already having challenges in the sector, but then we are trying to solve them through YPAD's initiatives. And hello, yeah, we're trying to solve problems. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Hello. So, through YPAD's initiatives, we're trying to address the challenges of the youth. And we realize that the climate crisis actually compounds these challenges. And we are now concerned as to how the youth are going to be able to achieve their dreams through agriculture. Because you notice that there's a challenge with food security, but then the youth are also concerned about their financial security. That is what we seek for when we engage ourselves on any sector at all. And that's the same for the agricultural sector. And so YPAD looks out to empower the youth to contribute to sustainable food systems, to improve their livelihoods, and to make sure that they are adequately positioned to contribute and to also benefit from the sector. But in FARA, the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, that's the institution that hosts YPAD in Africa, we noticed that we noticed through our interactions with youth and through research that the youth are not usually consulted when um, it comes to initiatives that are designed for the youth. So it's more like a top-down approach in the design of initiatives. And so the youth do not have an input as to what they expect from initiatives. And so everything is designed and then dumped on the youth. And so we actually think that anything that is done for the youth without the youth is actually done to them. And so the youth actually become victims. And we have been able to come up with an initiative we call the Agri Youth Empowerment Initiative. We seek to empower the youth through our initiatives. And what we do through this Agri Youth Empowerment Initiative is that we run a mentorship program that runs across various aspects of agriculture, having to do with policy, extension, research, farming, communications, and technology as well. And we seek to really we seek to have the youth become climate smart through these initiatives, try to be climate sensitive, and also pay attention to the best practices that are useful, that are going to help us fight the climate crisis. So through this, we have, and I have an acronym in mind, which is PLAN, PLAN, PLAN. We look at promoting the best climate smart agricultural practices among the youth. And through this, we look at promoting that which other youth have done, because we realize this peer-to-peer inspiration is very important, where the youth are able to know that one youth is able to do this, and so I am also able to do it, and I'm going to be able to gain from it financially, get some economic benefits from it while I'm on it. And we also, for the L in PLAN, we promote learnings, and promote learnings through which we are able to upscale the practices. And we also gather through our connections with the youth. We gather their inputs for the A, for advocacy. So while we engage them, we try to see how best to improve on the situation in the agricultural space with respect to the climate discussion. And then the N in there is where we bring the youth together as a network to make sure that they stand together as a strong front. So that is PLAN, and that is how we work through the Agri Youth Empowerment Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Kofi, for sharing. It's really interesting that you have identified a challenge, a barrier, and turned it into opportunity, empowering more young people in the African region, and also really creating a safe space for peer support and peer-to-peer learning in the field of climate-smart agriculture. I'm looking forward to hear more. But before we go to questions, last but not least, we shall have Thomas Wethoff, which is the president of a global agricultural student association, IAAS. Perhaps you could share more a bit about your experience and what does your organization do. Over to you, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, I'm Thomas. I'm current president of EAS, the International Association of Students in Agriculture and Related Sciences. And yeah, we exist now for more than 65 years. And our association has been created in Tunisia in the aftermath of the Second World War. All the students knew the experiences then of facing hunger, and it came with a hope for peace and prosperity. And as you mentioned today, it's more needed than ever. And also the climate has changed. We now face this amazing disaster, and we have to work to find a solution. So I think our association has been more relevant than ever now. And students have come together more and more. When we started, there were around 20 countries involved, mainly African and European countries. And now we are active in more than 50 countries, more than 10,000 members across the globe. And we really try to make a difference everywhere. And our vision is to create mutual understanding by exchanging ideas. And in that sense, I think we are a bit the UN in small, because we have a lot of different perspectives. And as we see with the food systems and with the Coronivia discussion now too, it's very important that we exchange ideas and create mutual understanding, because that is sometimes missing in the whole debate. We don't understand what we mean with what we say. And there we really hope to create that exchange of ideas. And I can explain EAS the best by the triple A, as I call it. So first of all, the aspiration. Young people really want to do something, really want to go out there. And I see that a window of opportunity is opening there. We have signed for a first time ever a letter of agreement with the FAO last year, creating capacity building trainings for young people. And we were able to select 8 students and bring them to our International Conference for Youth in Agriculture in Germany last March, and really go in depth with them and give them the tools, because we often say young people need access to investments, and often there are already programs in place, but young people lack the capacity to apply for these funding programs. So what we did, we gave them training. How can I apply for funding? And it has been very successful. One those winners of the competition who participated in it, Jokatema from the DRC, he got a loan of 125,000 euros and is now setting up one of the biggest agroforestry plants in the DRC. So amazing projects are taking place. And he is inspiring a group. I'm in a group of EAS DRC. There are more than 300 students he is inspiring and helping out. And I'm very happy to see that those developments. So we really want to create a space where students can aspire to go further and give them the tools and capacity trainings to do so. And you also mentioned already advocacy. We are very much working together with YPART on that too. Towards COP, we trained our delegation with a training program together with YPART, which our delegation benefited from, but also many others. We open it up for everyone because we think it's very important that youth in these spaces have a voice. It's often lacking. Yongo is sometimes difficult to understand. So in that sense, we really want to explain and try to get that on the agenda. But we also do that with our events. So as I mentioned, the International Conference for Youth in Agriculture, but also our World Congress. We sit there together with our students, try to create that mutual understanding and put it on paper. Where do we agree on? What do we think we should go further on? So in that sense, that's something we really try to work on, and then also go to these conferences, present our ideas. But most of all, and that's my last A, act. We should act. We should lead by example. And that's what EAS is doing. We have the Village Concept projects, for example. It's running for decades now. I have a good friend of mine who turned 50. She's not happy when I say it here. But the old president started it up 25 years ago. And it's really trying to work together with students and bring them to their own local communities. So we are working on more than 25 locations in the world with students that go back to their local communities to try something. And I can best explain it by giving an example. For example, in Indonesia, we have a group of students that come from a community where there are floodings, where their tea production is not working out. They learned at university about biopore systems. They go back and they work with those techniques, and they are preventing floods. But at the same time, they have a big network, and they create our first ever EAS tea brand. So EAS, I don't have the box with me, but EAS has its own tea brand. So we have those students there working, and they have this big network of EAS members across the globe that can help them. We have friends here in the room, EAS France, the national director. They're working with EAS Togo on same kind of projects. So really try to put our feet on the ground and yeah, try to make a difference there. So that is what EAS is doing in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for sharing, Thomas. That was really insightful. You've provided quite a number of experience sharing, especially when you talk about building capacity of young people. And IAS is such a global network, right? And you, by providing all these capacity building trainings, providing the tools to create the solutions, and global solutions oftentimes really needs local action. And one of the examples that you've given is on Indonesia. So Indonesia is a neighboring country for Malaysia, and having worked in the space for quite a number of years now, tackling the climate crisis with young people in Malaysia, we find out that the global climate crisis is such a big issue. Sometimes it can get very overwhelming. A lot of young people really struggle with eco-anxiety or climate grief. So it's really important to localize the climate narrative when it comes to the global crisis. And one of the initiatives that we've done in Malaysia is to create a database called YEL, which is the Youth Environment Living Labs. And a lot of people on this panel, I realize, love acronyms. We have PLAN, we have the AAA, and now I'm introducing to you another one. I hope you can keep it in mind. But basically the idea is to localize the climate narrative, show what it's like when it comes to climate disasters in your own country. How do we take forth, how we create action to tackle the problems to the global crisis, and also to strengthen the environmental and climate network within the space. Which brings me to my first question. You've shared quite a number of experience. I just wanted to ask, and personally I'm curious, what motivates you? What are the key enablers that allows you to do the work that you do? Perhaps Jessica, you may start first.
Yes, of course. I shared already a little bit about our youth ambassadors, and my role specifically at our organization is to train them in their advocacy efforts. So many of them, and I keep referring to my European Parliament experience because I'm based in Brussels, many of them have never been to the Parliament. So that's already an eye-opener for them to be there and to have those conversations. And one of the key things that struck me when then they came back from those conversations was, so the members of parliament actually do want to listen, they are open to our ideas, and actually we can tell them also something new because they don't realize that a lot of members of parliament have to focus on a range of topics and they are not as much an expert as those young people are that did their homework, that are genuinely interested and that are able to bring those conversations. And one key project I think that came to us during the COVID pandemic, which was maybe a positive thing if we can say it like this, was that we started an Africa-Europe task force. So we have those volunteers scattered out. We hadn't brought them together as much as we could. And now we saw this opportunity, so we started the task force with young people that worked together for over a year to formulate their own recommendations and to think through these differences and different perspectives to set up really a clear goal. And then we had a series of meetings with both African and European ambassadors in the lead up to the Africa-Europe Summit. And that was really, really powerful as well, those connections. I'm still in the WhatsApp chat with them and I see that they are still connected and reaching out. So for me, it's a little bit more those little things when you enable someone else to also have an impact than it is me tackling the climate crisis, which feels very much undoable. And these little steps feel much more like something I can have an impact with.
That's really interesting. I think it's really important that you've created that connection and relationship with your parliamentarians because I know a lot of countries still struggle to even make that connection or even approach them. Some are a bit recluse or some are just a bit defensive when it comes to their work, right? And I think that is in itself a success story in your case. Perhaps we could hear a bit more from our other panelists on what are the enablers or what are the key motivators that allows you to do the work that you do.
All right, thanks. So from our side as YPAD, we're a network of youth. It's actually a movement of the youth by the youth. And we noticed that um, being a youth is just a transition stage, and so we don't become youth forever. So we try to stay connected to our members. So by the time they finally transit it and become senior professionals in the space, they become mentors. And so that is the idea of the Agri Youth Empowerment Initiative, having youth within the YPAD network that transit and still stay with us as mentors, trying to help the youth remaining to also build themselves in the space. So this has helped us, and also partnerships has helped us. Partnerships with institutions that have like-minded vision, like the Africa Leadership Academy, and also our host institution, FARA, that's the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. And I wouldn't forget Agridia and GIFRES as well. Those are our host institutions. We also work directly with our with our other regional coordinating units across the globe, because we are a global network. And my director is here. We also have some Glindasers at the back. Yeah, they're part of our global coordinating unit, and we connect with Asia, Europe, to learn ideas, to see how we can transfer some learnings um, across the globe. Just trying to empower one another to be able to stand against the climate crisis. Yeah. Thank you.
I think a very important keyword that you mentioned is transition, because oftentimes we tend to forget that youth, we will grow up to be adults and we will be the ones taking positions in power. We'll be the ones who are making decision in the space, right? And this is in itself a very great case to invest in young people, who are leading already in the space for climate action, especially in like yourself doing amazing work in climate smart agriculture. And again, Thomas, what are your thoughts? I mean, like, what excites you? What motivates you to do the work that you do?
Yeah, very good question. First of all, intrinsic motivation of so many members that really gets me going, because it's all voluntarily, and that's often what people forget when they are working together with young people. We're all students, and we are all doing this in our free time. And if I see all those projects running and all that hard work of EIS members that are just doing it unpaid, just because they want to create a better world, because they want to learn, because they want to work together with young people from across the globe, that really gets me going in the first place. Then, yeah, secondly, bring opportunities to all. When I was the national director of EAS Netherlands, I worked closely together with my university, Wageningen University, and there were countless of investment programs that nobody heard of outside of the Netherlands yet. So for me, it was really good to spread the word about all these opportunities. And now I'm in touch with 30 new countries of EAS, and when I get messages in my LinkedIn inbox like, oh, we see what you're doing, amazing, we want to be part of this, I really think I can open up a new chapter here. And with that, they get the communication, they get the opportunities. And yeah, one thing I want to highlight here is, for example, the project Higher Himalaya in Nepal. When I was the national director, they participated in a Wageningen challenge. They won 2,500 euros and are now working on a prototype in the Himalayas where they can create warehouses to store apples. And with climate change, it will become hotter in the Himalaya. Apples will spoil quicker. So there are young people that are on the ground working. They want another challenge and another challenge. They're really trying to work it out. The ministry is involved now. They are scaling it up. So I'm very happy that maybe that one recommendation from me, showing that that competition exists, led to that. And thirdly, opening doors in old institutions like the FAO, like big multinationals that have been inward looking for a long time. I see a window of opportunity opening there. More and more they're looking outward. They see the value of engaging with young people. And I think it's interesting to start a discussion with them. Of course, we don't always agree with them, but at least we can have a conversation with them and yeah, try to put things on the agenda. But that's work in progress, I must say. It's all new, but I see a space opening up. I hope it. The old president of 25 years ago said also she saw a space opening up back then. So I hope it is not stable. It will improve over time, but I see it opening up, and yeah, let's see how that evolves.
Great, thanks for sharing. You mentioned 25 years, and it took such a long time to build such a robust network of young people within the space. And I'm sure when you start off, you really start off from somewhere, and all these accomplishments that you just shared with us in this room does not go without its barriers and its challenges. And I'm sure you have been facing a lot of that to be able to get to where you are today. So this is an open question to whoever would like to share first. What are some of the key barriers and challenges that you have faced within your workspace, and how do you overcome it? Tough question, huh?
Okay, so for our initiative thrives on information. Our initiative thrives on information, and so we see this as a very vital aspect of it that we need to pay attention to. We notice that the youth are not a homogeneous group of people. They have their various challenges, especially as relates to the different aspects of agriculture they want to be um, tied onto, or the different aspects of the food system that they want to connect with. And so the challenges are not, there are a myriad of challenges, a whole broad spectrum of them. And so that is a challenge to us. But we try to scale this through regular conversations. We have this we have this approach we call the YPAD Cafe, where we get our youth to come together to discuss issues. So that helps us get to know what they face, their anxieties with the climate issues, what they hope to achieve, and how they believe we can move forward. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wrote some things down. Um, yeah, first of all, I think a lack of respect to civil society. I come from the Netherlands, and here it's all fine to start up an association, but we should not realize that a lot of countries are struggling to set up an EAS chapter, set up an international association, because it's seen as something that's forbidden, something that is a threat to their security. So first of all, I hope in these spaces civil society can be very strong and very loud about that. Secondly, I think youth washing, tokenism, trying to get youth as part of a panel or a program just to say they are working together with youth. I think that is a barrier, but I will come later how I think we all should solve it. Trying to creating something new, replacing us. I see that often, that they think, okay, we want to work together with youth. We create our own youth advisory panel. We create our own, now you call it youth program, but not working together with the already existing programs out there, because it's very hard to reinvent the wheel. Well, there are already so well-connected associations out there. And lastly, I think lack of funding. But as I said, I think there are a lot of funding programs out there. It's just a lot of bureaucracy to get into them. But I think it's also then up to us to create a capacity in our network to make sure people know the ways to that funding. That are one of the main barriers I've seen so far in my work. And some solutions, I think, to combat those.
Yes, I would very much agree with one of the points that Thomas made, that I relate to accountability of leaders. So often we notice that it is helpful to get through the door when you are with a group of young people, but how do you actually hold leaders accountable to the points that you made, even when they actually promise to do those things, or they are in the Paris Agreement, for example, but they are renegotiated here or even promised, but then in practice it's not really there. So that's really hard to track the numbers, to come back with sort of the evidence and say like, why didn't you actually do what you said? And I wanted to add one other barrier, which is that a lot of the time within big crises, people in countries tend to look inwards. So in the Netherlands, for example, with COVID crises, people are much more focused on what is going to happen in the Netherlands, how are we going to make sure that everyone can keep their job, how we're going to make sure that everyone can get a vaccine, and they don't pay attention to the fact that what happens on other continents will have effect in the end in their own countries as well, in the form of economic crises. So apart from the moral arguments that you should pay attention to everyone around the world, it's also very short-sighted. But you do see that this is a very big trend in European countries. So when you come to politicians, they also often say, I have a constituency, I have to deliver for the people that have elected me. And you have to keep making the argument for the bigger picture. And I don't feel we have put that fully through yet. Otherwise, we would also be much further with fighting the climate crisis.
Thanks for sharing. I hear you. And just, to summarize, youth face a lot of challenges, particularly lack of support, issues like youth tokenism, and also just simply getting our voices heard. And this is where you rightly summarized that, accountability. Accountability is needed, and we really need to put forward, hold the leaders accountable, and also mere respect. I think leaders and people in power should respect the opinions of young people, because what is happening for the future is happening to us now, and we're the generation who is going to take the lead in the future. And before we come to a close, I would like to open up the questions to the floor. If anyone would like to ask a question to any one of the panelists. Lady at the back, Michelle.
Hi, yeah, so great panel, really good insights and like really great work. So my question is like, we are currently at week 2 at COP, and on Saturday we also had a thematic day on agriculture and adaptation. Are you following the discussions at the plenary, and like could you give some insights on there on your experience as well so far at COP? Has it met your expectations and so on? So yeah.
It's an open question, I assume, so any one of you would like to share?
Yeah, I've been following it mainly in the first week, and I'm very disappointed with the outcome. I hoped that Coronivia would pass, that we would find a conclusion. It has been framed as a presidency as something very important, agriculture on the agenda. I have seen no deliverables. It's very vague for me also where it was halted. At the other hand, I also think for you it was very hard to follow because of all the informals behind closed doors. Very difficult to see what's going on. Not a lot of cooperation with the others. And I think they are missing out because young people can bring parties together. We can see ways that maybe they have not seen yet. It's good for us to understand what goes wrong and how we can help there. So I'm very disappointed. That's the main conclusion.
Yeah, I can agree again. For me, it's really the same. I've been in a couple of negotiations, mainly around climate finance, for adaptation, and for loss and damage, the famous one that is going nowhere. It's terrible. And when you are in these negotiations, I did find it interesting because they are the official negotiations, so they have to be very honest, and they cannot use the same speeches that they do when they say we really see the importance of loss and damage, for example, of adaptation. We will commit to it, but then in their official statements, they have to, of course, say we hope to continue this dialogue until 2024. I think that's the most ambition I got from the European Union, for example. So for me, it's also not going great, no.
Okay, so for me, it's been my first COP, and there have been some questions on my mind. To think that we're doing this for the 27th time, I've been asking myself what has changed. Has it changed positively in the right direction, or has it changed, has it actually gotten worse? Because I've been looking at the number of people who are here concerned about the climate situation, and I'm wondering what we would get out of it at the end of the entire conference. If we're going to get something out of this, it has to be concrete decisions. It has to be very inclusive decisions as well. It has to benefit women, especially because in conversations that I have paid attention to, I realize that women are the most vulnerable. And after that, then we have the youth. So then these are the ones who are supposed to be in the decision, at least contributing to the decisions. But if we do not see this, then I'm sorry, we may not be heading towards any place at all. Yeah, my few thoughts. That's just me.
That's totally valid. I think we all share the similar sentiments. The question is, even if the negotiations are progressing, are we progressing fast enough? Are we progressing fast enough to limit the global warming to 1.5? 1.5 is not a target, it's a threshold. If we go beyond there, there are serious implications, particularly to the global food crisis and also food systems and agricultural systems. But before we end, sorry, do you have one more question? Just a quick one, and then we'll do a round of summary.
Great, thank you all. You all work for, are a part of organizations that center youth as leaders. Most organizations don't. So when we think about tokenism of youth, would love some creative and very concrete ways that organizations can actually elevate and empower young leaders to be at the decision-making table.
The question is? Or is that a comment? Oh, how ideas?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because there's always a power imbalance, and that is something companies have to have in mind when they are starting corporations, that they know, okay, I work together with youth, but you have to tell the whole story, and you should also give the freedom to associations to say, I don't want to participate in this, and you should also not create dependency in that way that you say like, okay, yeah, we can fund you, but you have to do this and this and this. It's more, if you believe in us, you should give us the trust and give us the freedom to work together in a way which is good for both of us. So I think that is, especially the power imbalance is always good to remember.
Surely there's a lot of other ideas that comes to mind, and we can have questions outside once we end up the session. Feel free to approach the speakers and the panels. We have time. But just to close the session, just to summarize a bit, I just want to lay out one more last question to you. What is your message to the youth out there to empower them to take action based on your experience? Just a quick 1 to 2 sentences. What is your key message that you would like to relay to the young people out there?
It's a big challenge. My key message is big key message that you are an expert in your own right. This I see a lot with the young people that I work with. They are not too sure, and I touched upon this before. You know your stuff. Like, don't be afraid to share it and just give your opinion.
So my message to the youth is that if we're really going to transition to become senior professionals, we should be bold enough to step up now. We're not supposed to wait for opportunities. We should jump for opportunities. So that's my message to you.
Yeah, I will keep it short. Think globally, act locally.
Thank you so much, everyone. Round of applause to all of our panel speakers. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. To reiterate the opening remarks just now, young people globally make 42% of the global population, but we are 100% of our future. Thank you so much.
Sorry, hi everyone. I just wanted to take this opportunity to have everyone in this room. My name is Marilik. I'm from Klein Eat. and today we've given out this day to the youth organizations, and I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all the organizations supporting us today. So we have them all here in the room. We have YPAR, we have IAS, we have Yungo, where are you there? And World Food Forum. So a huge thank you. And I also wanted to reiterate that the reason why we are doing this is that we believe that we need to come together and that we need to collaborate if we want to have meaningful action, especially climate action in food systems. And so what we are showing you today is that youth are actually paving the way for that collaboration. We are all from different organizations, different backgrounds, different perspectives, but we're coming together because we're realizing that the urgency to act is bigger than the differences. And so in this way, we're coming together, and we're hoping to share that with you and continue the conversation the rest of the day. We will be back shortly at 10 o'clock with a new session on creating access, where we'll be discussing more about options and barriers for youth action in food systems. So thank you all very much, and a special thanks again to all our organizing co-hosts.